The ultimate driving machine is going electric, as I am standing behind the all-new 2022 BMW i4 M50. This is a whole new take on what BMW is all about, and I am here for the ride, as I'm going to be fully experiencing this car today to see how it compares to the Tesla Model 3 and Polestar 2. Now, if you are looking at buying an EV, but you don't want to purchase a Tesla, you don't really have a lot of options out there right now at the moment. Now, we do have some new additions like the Kia EV6 and also the Hyundai Ioniq 5, but when it comes to luxury cars, there's not a lot out there unless you have a price range of around $100,000 to $150,000 with the Porsche Taycan and also the Mercedes-Benz EQS and also the Audi e-tron GT. But the BMW i4 gives you more of an affordable option if you are in the market for a car at around $60,000. And I'm really excited to see what the i4 has to offer and see how it differs from its electric rivals. So in this video, we're going to take a good long look at the 2022 BMW i4 M50, take it out for a test drive, and see if it is the ultimate electric driving machine. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Herb Chambers BMW of Sudbury in Sudbury, Massachusetts, for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive BMW inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. In the era of electrification, non-mainstream brands like Tesla and Polestar have taken the reins as being the go-to options if you're ready to make the switch from your gas-powered vehicle. But as we're creeping along in the 2020s, legacy manufacturers are beginning to catch up at a blistering pace. And with BMW making their first real introduction to the EV world with the i4 and iX, you've got to wonder if we're finally beginning to turn the page, where electrification not only provides sustainability, but a variety of vehicles to choose from, where you can have German engineering, exhilarating driving characteristics, and a car that's inspiring to own. The i4 is shaping up to be the Tesla Model 3's first real rival that can compete in multiple ways besides range and performance. But it's also possible that we're witnessing appealing alternatives arrive on a global stage. Starting off with pricing, the i4 M50 comes in at just under $66,000, which is very competitive with the Tesla Model 3, especially if you qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credits, among other incentives depending on what state you live in. Not only does BMW have to compete when it comes to range and performance, but the deal maker will be predicated on build quality, and specifically for the i4, being built on BMW's cluster architecture platform, which underpins many vehicles in the lineup, is going to provide the refinement and quality to match its price tag. When it comes to exterior dimensions, the i4 is pretty much identical in length and width to the 4 Series Gran Coupe, so it will be easy to maneuver and get acclimated with if you've owned a 3 or 4 Series in the past. Unlike the iX, this sedan takes all of its design and styling cues from the gas-powered model it's based on, with large kidney grills up front and contrasting gloss black accents for the lower portion of the front bumper. As with most BMWs, you can opt for the Shadowline package for a sportier and more dynamic look, and you have the ability to upgrade the headlights to adaptive LEDs with laser light for improved visibility at night. Easing the transition of using internal combustion engines to an electric vehicle, the conventional and traditional road presence for the i4 has received a lot of praise by consumers, as many brands have been known to go too futuristic with their first round of EVs, and oftentimes that leads to buyers not being too keen on the direction manufacturers are going in. Moving over to the side profile, this i4 is sitting on 19-inch M Y-spoke bicolor midnight gray Aero wheels, but it should be worth noting that you can upgrade to 20s. However, that will severely impact range and likely ride quality as well. Speaking of ride quality, the i4 feels very balanced and planted despite being just over 5,000 pounds. But with BMW focusing on weight distribution, this car does handle well and is relatively nimble. You have color contrasting side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the Sportback rear end essentially makes the i4 a Gran Coupe. So rather than a trunk, you'll have a hatch to maximize rear cargo capacity. As we saw up front, the gloss black accents make their return for the rear diffuser to add a striking color contrast on this model. But ultimately, what's great about this EV from a design perspective is the fact that from the outside, it's a 4 Series. And that alone will go a long way in drawing attention and guiding buyers along into the direction of electrification. While the kidney grills will get stares and distinguish the i4 on the road, from a buyer's point of view, this is a car of the future without having awkward body lines we're seeing from most competitors. Getting to performance, the BMW i4 M50 is powered by dual electric motors to give you 536 horsepower and an eye-opening 586 pound-feet of torque to propel this sedan to a 0 to 60 time of around 3.7 seconds, which, to put that into perspective, is about the same as a rear-wheel drive BMW M4. Sticking to the brand's heritage of being sporty and dynamic, the i4 is essentially an electrified M car, where the attributes and characteristics that you love about BMW translates to a whole new generation and era, inspiring confidence that an EV future isn't going to be bland and mundane. And a lot of that can be credited to the shared platform with the 4 Series. When it comes to range, the M50 can achieve 270 miles on a single charge. But if you're looking for better efficiency and saving money, the i4 eDrive 40 gets closer to that 300-mile mark. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a familiar interior, but there's some new additions that makes this electrified 4 Series and BMWs in the near future far more cutting edge and futuristic. Starting off with the seating, you'll have power adjustable and heated Sensitech seats for both the driver and passenger, with the ability to upgrade to Vernasca leather upholstery for extra support and comfort. However, the main focus has to be what's in front of you, as BMW has gone trendy with a digital information display and head unit. A topic of discussion in the past was that the digital gauges found in current BMW models lacks customizability and interactiveness, but that's all changed for the i4, as you can change the layout, the information that's showcased to you, and also access the head-up display by using the buttons mounted on the right side of the steering wheel. The all-new tech you're interacting with enhances your experience behind the wheel, rather than just being eye candy or a gimmick like we've seen in the past, and that continues as we glance over to the right to the infotainment system. This is our first time seeing BMW's iDrive 8 user interface, and thankfully it didn't disappoint. In fact, this infotainment system is a substantial leap forward compared to prior head units. But we also didn't see this type of development and improvement when the brand switched from the iDrive 6 to iDrive 7. Creating a huge sigh of relief is that BMW didn't remove the rotary dial and quick access buttons, as that will likely be the easiest and most convenient way to navigate your way through the new menus. The resolution and responsiveness for this large 15-inch screen is crisp and clear. But best of all, the changes aren't so radical that you'll have to get reacquainted with this touchscreen. The one noticeable difference, however, is that the dual-zone climate controls will be found on the screen, and will have a dedicated menu on the head unit, rather than having physical buttons on the dashboard, which isn't necessarily a big deal as competitors have embraced a cleaner design. With this i4 being equipped with a parking assistance package, we do have a 360-degree 3D camera to help park this car, and of course, you'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory. Continuing on, the rest of the interior is rather conventional and typical for BMW, as there will be a row of buttons for the front and rear defrosters and a physical knob for the volume. As we make our way down towards the center console, there will be an available wireless phone charging pad, and as we've seen many times before, it's here where the drive mode selector can be found, so you can experience the i4 M50 to its fullest. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in some natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the driver's side. And this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a good amount of legroom to work with here. Now, compared to the 4 Series Gran Coupe, there's really not much of a difference at all. And then compared to the Tesla Model 3 and Polestar 2, it's going to be right in line when it comes to interior dimensions. The only thing that you really need to worry about is headroom, with the BMW i4 having a Sportback rear end. And I think taller passengers will hit their head on the headliner, but when it comes to a smaller family, I think kids are going to be more than comfortable back here, but also for average size adults, they should have no problem sitting in the second row. Now, of course, with this being more of a compact sedan, you're just not going to be able to fit a third person back here, and the center hump is very aggressive. So obviously, you're going to want to go with an iX and other EV crossovers that should be coming down the road if you are somebody that's focused on that family-friendly aspect. But when it comes to even trying to squeeze a third person in on a very short drive, just not going to happen. This car is designed for 4 people overall. And then on the passenger side, this seat is adjusted most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline. And I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here, but as I experienced with the 4 Series Gran Coupe, my feet are getting a little tucked under the front seat. So keep all of that in mind. I do think, again, the i4 is meant for smaller families, but also for a daily driver and a daily commuter if you are going to work and you're looking for something a bit more sustainable and not something you have to go to the gas station at all. Then I think that's where the i4 fits in. But for a smaller family, this could work for sure, especially if you have smaller children. Also back here, you will have climate control to go along with 2 rear air vents, 2 USB-C inputs, and rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 10 cubic feet of room to work with. Now, admittedly, that's actually a decrease from the 4 Series Gran Coupe, which gives you right around 16.5 cubic feet of room. Compared to other EVs in this market, it is going to fall just a bit behind the Tesla Model 3 and Polestar 2. But I was able to fit all my camera gear today, and then some. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and also a tripod, and I still had enough room where I could probably do grocery shopping as well for myself. Now, I think a lot of people are still hesitant to go on road trips with EVs, but I do think that if you want to go on a weekend getaway, you could definitely do so, especially with the infrastructure slowly getting into place. But also, since you do have 275 miles of range, I think you can definitely go on that weekend getaway. Then with the second row seats folded, that space will right around double in size. So if you don't have kids in the back, or anyone in the second row for that matter, you can fit longer items, and I think this car is exactly what you're looking for if you are looking for a daily commuter that does give you some sense of practicality. On either side of the rear cargo area, you will have some netting with some small cubbies where you can fit smaller items, possibly car detail equipment, water bottles, or a first aid kit. So that adds just a bit more to the practicality this car is offering. But one of the reasons why I think we are seeing a decrease in the cargo capacity is because of the placement of the battery and the electric motor on the rear axle. Then beneath the floor mat, you're going to notice another cubby, which most likely is going to be used for your charger, and maybe if you have other smaller items, you can fit them back here, and that way people won't be able to peek in and steal what you have. And finally, once you're done, just press the button, and the liftgate will close automatically. The i4's arrival to the EV car market, I guess you could say, is a shock to the system. But more importantly, it's the car that I think a lot of people have been waiting for. If you're not a fan of Tesla or the Tesla Model 3, you want a car that can rival that, a car that you can feel confident that when you step inside is going to be better than the rivals that are out there. And the BMW i4 really is the closest competitor that the Tesla Model 3 has had to face up to this point. Now, you could argue that the Polestar 2 does that as well. But on paper, the BMW i4 outclasses the Polestar 2 in every way, shape or form when it comes to the range, when it comes to performance. And I think when you start looking at the refinement and the build quality, the i4 really is, I think, the closest we've come to seeing to a gas-powered model, where you have the exact same interior as a 4 Series Gran Coupe. You also have the driving dynamics to match it and back it up, where you can feel very confident when you're driving on back roads or getting on the highway. And that's where the M50 really could change this entire market completely. Best of all, what the BMW i4 is offering here is an electrified 4 Series. And you could argue that the Polestar 2 is really what a Volvo S40 should have been and could have been. But the i4 is the one car that I think a lot of people can step into and be very familiar with. Even though we have the new iDrive 8 system, this is a huge step forward, and you find yourself in an environment that I think rivals even Audi and Mercedes-Benz at a price point that's not necessarily going to break the bank. If you can buy a car at around $65,000, this one right here, I think, is totally worth the price of admission. Now, the question really comes down to is whether BMW has been able to give this car the driving dynamics that we experience with the gas-powered models. And, you know, with EVs, you get the lower center of gravity, you get the weight with the battery placements and also the electric motor. And I find that EVs tend to handle a lot better than the internal combustion engine alternatives. And what BMW has been able to do with the weight distribution for this car, it feels very planted to the road. The only difference, though, is that you still have to deal with the regen braking, and that may affect your driving style to a very minor degree. I mean, it's not too strong where you get off the accelerator and it slows down immediately, but it is going to take a little bit of a learning curve to get used to that. But I gotta be honest though, this car drives just like every other BMW I reviewed on the channel so far. The major changes though is that they gave it technology that matches the direction the automotive industry is heading in. The new head-up display, very easy to read. In fact, I don't need to look down at the gauge cluster at all, although I love the new design that they've made for the 2022 i4. Definitely an improvement over what we've seen from BMW very recently and in the past. Also, of course, the iDrive 8 system, to me, is really a significant upgrade over the iDrive 7. And also, you have this massive screen that you can see everything on. And even with the sun glare, it's not too bad at all. The ultimate test, though, is sport mode. And let's see what the i4 is capable of doing. The sound is from Hans Zimmer himself, the legendary composer for a number of movies. I'm sure you guys love his music, and I do as well. And it's a nice, deep, throaty sound. Now, even though I think having more of a manufactured gas power sound would be better just because that's what I prefer, I do like the way it resonates in the interior. It certainly gets your heart racing for sure, along with this instant torque. And when you're looking at 536 horsepower and over 580 pound-feet of torque, I mean, you could really get yourself into a lot of trouble. Thankfully, of course, we do have the head-up display, so I know exactly what the speed limits are in this area. Oh my gosh! Gets you right back in your seat. The one thing, though, that is standing out to me, though, with the i4 is that when it comes to handling, it's not as heavy in sport mode as I've experienced with the M340i and also the M4. I don't know if that's because they have to take in consideration that you do have the battery placements and the electric motors, and maybe they're trying to figure out a way to still give you that dynamic driving experience without making the car feel too heavy. Because I gotta be honest here, for a car that does weigh at around 5,000 pounds, it feels very light. I don't feel like I'm in a very large car at all. And when it does corner, it's very agile. This car is actually pretty light on its feet, which is a bit of a surprise just because when you factor in just how heavy this sedan is, that's pretty great to see. The steering, though, is very direct for sure, even though it's not as heavy. So when it comes to the feedback, it's not like a true M car in that sense. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very hesitant to say that this is a new generation and new era. Even though I've probably already said that once or twice in this video, this is more like a new interpretation of what a sedan is for the BMW lineup, what a new interpretation of the ultimate driving machine is. What I am going to say, though, is compared to other EVs, this is very fun and enjoyable to drive. Now, you could argue that Tesla does have the driving dynamics and, of course, the performance to back it up. But when it comes to non-Tesla models, this car, to me, is probably the most exhilarating that I've experienced so far. And that's one of the reasons why I do think that when it comes to the Polestar 2, that I feel as though the BMW i4 has kind of sucked the energy out of the excitement for that car. Because when you look at its price point, when you look at its performance, and then you compare it to the BMW i4, you gotta wonder, did you make a bad decision by choosing the Polestar? And the Polestar is a great looking car and a great car in its own right, but when you factor in the range, the pricing, and the performance, if you want to buy an EV, you want to get that pushback in your seat. You want to show off to your friends that this car is faster than their gas-powered models. And the i4, and I think BMW understands that. And that's why I feel the i4 is really a great EV option. Now let's get into the range, though, for a minute with the M50. You're looking at right around 275 miles of range, which does fall a bit short against the Tesla Model 3. But again, when you're looking at this price point, maybe you don't need to worry about that. Maybe you're just looking for a daily commuter and you don't do 300-mile trips on a weekly basis. But then compare that to the Polestar 2, and even with the dual electric motors for the Polestar 2, I think you're only getting 245. You have to go with the single electric motor for around 270, but you're looking at a 0 to 60 time at around 7 seconds. And I don't know, when you're looking at buying an EV, the whole marketing side to this particular segment is performance and having that great 0 to 60 time. And when you're looking at the i4, the eDrive 40 gets right around 5 seconds or just above that. So again, off the bat, it's faster than the Polestar 2. Also gets better range because you can get around 300 miles on a full charge. But then the M50, you're getting a 0 to 60 time under 4 seconds. That could rival an M3 or M4. So you're getting the performance. You're also getting a decent price when you factor in the $7,500 federal tax credits if you qualify. And now you're getting a car, I think, at a reasonable price for an EV. But also, best of all, is that when you're looking at where the segment is in general, a lot of the EVs, whether it is a car or a crossover, just don't look that good. And I got to see this car fly by, and it just has a striking road presence. To be honest, I think it looks better. I don't know why, but it looks better than the 4 Series Gran Coupe. There's just something about the gloss black accents that they've done to this model, but also I think it's just some of the minor cosmetic features that really have a nice striking road presence, and it just really draws and grabs your attention. What I've not touched on so far in this test drive, or quite frankly in this review, is how comfortable this car really is, and if it is daily drivable in that way, if it's a leap forward over your gas-powered car, if you do own a 3 Series or 4 Series. And what I've always said with EVs is that when it comes to its on-road demeanor, they drive a lot better than their gas-powered counterparts. Even though enthusiasts love the stiffer suspensions, they love the stiffer handling, and also they want to have the sound of the exhaust. If you're somebody who doesn't want any of that, you want a car that can get you to point A to point B, but you also want to have a car that is fun, though, that does have that performance. The i4, to me, is an upgrade over gas-powered cars in that way, because this car is all around smooth, like all EVs, but I think it has just a bit more soul than the Tesla Model 3. I've driven the Tesla Model 3 before, and there's something missing. And it might be because it's lacking the sound when you are accelerating. Now, even though I'm not accelerating that much, I'm just tapping the throttle here, you do have that audio resonate in the interior, and it adds something to this car. But also, even though I say that the handling isn't as stiff, isn't as tight as you experience in an M340i or an M4, there's just a bit more feedback than the Tesla Model 3. And that's why I feel that if you are an EV enthusiast and you've transitioned from the gas-powered experience and you want to have that EV that can still give you that fun, it can still raise that heartbeat, the i4 to me, I think, is the better car because you can really have that fun behind the wheel on back roads. You are going to have the traditional BMW layout. You're going to have that traditional BMW experience, but it's in a new way. It's a new taste. And if you're ready to make that switch, I think the i4 and also the iX is certainly worth taking a look at. But also you can silently carve your way through the back roads and really not get yourself into so much trouble where people can hear you down the road. So let's see how this i4 handles in this corner. Planted. It's effortless. I think that's where it's difficult as a car enthusiast to not necessarily get excited, but you miss something there because it's too effortless with the i4. You take that corner and it's too easy to really maneuver this car. But at the same time, it's just an all-around great daily that is electrified. And I think this is the car a lot of us have been waiting for. That you're tired of hearing about Tesla because you know that Tesla doesn't have the best build quality, that their interiors aren't really the most interactive. I mean, of course, people buy into all the gimmicks with the sounds that you can make, but also even with the games that are on the infotainment systems, there's just too much there that, you know, I think a lot of young people enjoy. But if you're somebody who just wants to own a car that feels conventional, then the i4 is definitely that. So to wrap up this review, the BMW i4 is an electrified 4 Series. And it's for that reason I believe this sedan right here will give the Polestar 2 and Tesla Model 3 a run for their money. Now, we can come from different perspectives and aspects and say that, well, the BMW i4 can't go as far on a single charge as a Tesla Model 3, and that for enthusiasts, we're going to say that the handling and cornering ability isn't as dynamic and as tight as a M340i or M440i. And as you heard me talk throughout the review, but also during the test drive, I think as an enthusiast, our measurement of criticism isn't accurate, and that it is a disservice to what the i4 is offering. Because yes, it's only natural that I will compare this to an M340i or M440i when it comes to pricing and performance. But when you compare this to the Tesla Model 3 and also the Polestar 2, that's where you have to start saying, wait a minute, I think BMW is onto something here. And even though this is a new iteration and a new version of what the ultimate driving machine is, in an electrified world, this is exactly what I want to experience. I want to have a car that performs very well, that is capable to take on the Tesla Model 3, that when it comes to range, it's better than the Polestar 2, that when it comes to handling and cornering, that it gives me just a bit more feedback than the Tesla Model 3. But also more importantly, because of what Hans Zimmer has done to the sound, it has a bit more soul to it. And the way the sound resonates into the cabin and how it comes out of the speakers, it really gives you a bit more vibration in your soul and your eardrums. And to me, that says quite a bit. As an enthusiast who wants to hear an inline 6 or a V8 or a V10, I want to have that experience. I want to have that sound. And I think BMW has nailed it in that regard. Now, of course, I think Porsche has done the exact same with the Porsche Taycan, but pricing, of course, is way out of the i4's league and not in this market. But when you compare this to the Polestar 2 and also the Tesla Model 3, I think the i4 is giving you quite a bit. It's giving you a conventional interior. It's giving you the performance that you want. It's giving you the range that I think is adequate in 2022. And also it's giving you a car that I think is an all-around great performer in an EV market. Now, of course, I always have to come back and compare it to the gas-powered models, but I do think that if you're ready to buy an EV, the i4 has to be on your list of considerations. I also think it's worth going to your local BMW dealer and testing it out before going to a Tesla store, because I think the i4 is certainly going to draw your attention. It's going to impress you in many ways. And I do think that when you look at what other vehicles out there are offering, the i4 is the closest we've come to seeing perfection in this market, even though, as an enthusiast, I will say that does have some points of criticism, that there is some things that are lacking. But if you are somebody who has driven a Tesla in the past, maybe owns one, and maybe ready to trade in for something else, you want a different experience, I think the i4 is exactly what you're looking for. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.